A great movie you can watch again and again. Because you'll probably be confused the first time around. It's not a coincidence it stars some of the greatest actors of our time. Crazy good. So rewatchable. The acting is amazing, the story is amazing the second time you watch it, very good acting, funny as well sometimes. Great movie. GOAT. This movie is one of the greatest of all time. It is adapted from a book by Chuck Palahniuk. This movie has very interesting themes like emasculation, violence, chaos, societal breakdown, isolation, the threat of death and consumerism. The direction is sublime. Perfect cinematography, pacing and editing. The twists and nuances of the book are captured perfectly. Also they did a good job with the intercuts. Brad Pitt and Edward Norton were the perfect choice to lead this movie. When you are watching the movie you just are glued to your seat, that is just how good it is. How this is not everyone's favorite movie is beside me. I first saw Fight Club when I was 8 years old. I didn't understand any of it, but I liked the fighting and editing. I saw it again when I was 13 and just started seeing movies for what they were, a language. A language through which the filmmakers interpret their own views on the world. I understood more of it, especially being part of the middle children of history generation. After that, I saw it at least once per year and every single time, I realized something new or different about it, and the world itself. I grew with this movie both intellectually and spiritually. Still took me another 12 years to understand this movie is the textbook for Jungian psychology besides already being the single greatest social critique of the consumer era. It's ridiculously smart, deep, beautiful and cool. I've watched basically every movie out there, and nothing comes even close to the degree of greatness of Fight Club. Boring, overrated, pretentious, confused, and very silly. Although this film was watchable for the first hour or so, it goes very rapidly downhill for the sorry remainder of its duration. There are simply too many different ideas vying for the viewer's attention. Intellectuals have found acres and acres of meaning, which David Fincher wanted them to, although he knows that he has simply made an extremely pretentious and boring mess. It's not all doom and gloom though. There are some very good set pieces in the first half of the film that actually entertained me for a while. Action movie with an infantile, rubbish plot. In short, Fight Club is a movie that attempts to give a distorted portrait of society as an evil in order to facilitate showing violence and yet more violence. But since the protagonist's disbelief in society is not substantiated, the movie has a hard time explaining the destruction plot. So, time has to be spent watching people fight. And of course, the disbelief cannot be motivated, the protagonist complaining that, God damn it, an entire generation pumping gas, we have no Great War. No Great Depression. Is both romanticizing over events in Western history, that made absolutely no sense to the people living it, and at the same time mocking our grandparents and the life and society they fought for, ours. The main character continues, we were raised on television to believe that we'd all be millionaires, movie gods, rock stars, but we won't. Well, learning to differentiate between yourself and movie gods, and rock stars and learning that life is not all beer and Skittles is what growing up is about today. So, Brad Pitt et al., grow up. And go read a book or something. The rubbish quote sums it up pretty good, I see in Fight Club the strongest and smartest men that have ever lived. I see all this potential, and I see it squandered. God damn it, an entire generation pumping gas or waiting tables, slaves with white collars. We're the middle children of history. No purpose or place. We have no Great War. No Great Depression. Our Great War is a spiritual war. Our Great Depression is our lives. Advertising has us chasing cars and clothes, working jobs we hate, so we can buy ST we don't need. We were raised on television to believe that we'd all be millionaires, movie gods, rock stars, but we won't. And we're slowly learning that fact. And we're very, very effed off. Brilliant direction and superb acting. Fight Club is a brash slap in the face of consumerism and the working dead. It questions reality. It is strikingly thought-provoking and visually stimulating. The direction is incredibly brilliant. Director David Fincher, Aliens, Say 7N and The Game, is at his finest here, warping both space and time, dropping in things here and there to make things clear. Edward Norton is excellent as Jack, the narrator of the movie. He is a nerdy insomniac who catalogs shops at IKEA and has a going-nowhere job. Brad Pitt is dynamic as Tyler Durden, an anarchistic man who lives in a rundown abandoned house and makes and sells soap for a living. Helena Bonham Carter is also great as Marla Singer, the manic-depressive chain-smoking woman in both their lives. Her role is critical and she plays it well. There has been some controversy about the violence in this film, but it is not gratuitous violence, it is part of the story and serves it well. It is much less than what you would see in your average Hollywood blockbuster. This is actually an insightful film and in many ways similar to American Beauty, although this film is much more in your face about its message. If you are squeamish, you may not want to see it. There are some very painful bloody scenes, but if you can stomach it, then check it out. There is also a huge twist in this film that almost rivals the twist at the end of The Sixth Sense. And I must admit, it is the twist in this film that made me really love it. The best audience for this film is men in their 20s or 30s, but anyone that can appreciate film as a modern art should like it. One of the best films of 1999. Amazing movie, but my only problem with it, and the reason that I can't give it a 10/10, is that I think they went too big on the ending. I think the twist that Brad Pitt didn't exist was enough. The entire city didn't need to blow up. Or at least that's my opinion. Rick's reviews. As far as movies can go, Fight Club always gets me rewatching. I remember first watching this movie about 2 years after its release and still watching now, still looking for what they now call Easter eggs, hidden items. As for twists and turns, action drama, this movie has everything you need to top it off. Edward Norton and Brad Pitt. Great characters, brilliant storyline. You need to watch this movie. Forget the big budget CGI. These movies will remain for all time. I think I am going to watch it again now. I study philosophy, but this film took me for a ride. I watched the first hour and a half of this movie when I was 16 before I asked my boyfriend to turn it off because it was too dark. Now I am in my early 20s and I watched it until the very end, credits and all, and it truly is the best thing I've ever watched. I'm obsessed and I can't wait to watch it again. I reckon it will hit me even harder when I am older, and I'm sure it will be just as fantastic. Everything from the plot, the acting, even the damn lighting of every scene is art. I cannot believe I was not pushed to rewatch it sooner. I'm writing this as 1 a.m. because I can't stop thinking about it. It will seep into my dreams, and I'm not sure if that is terrifying or thrilling. Maybe both. Fight Club, a good movie gone bad. I watched End of Days directly after this disjointed feature, and the Arnold piece came out looking like The Godfather. There was a lot of talk when Alien 3 came out that David Fincher's limitations as a music video/commercial director would hamper the film's presentation. I was pleasantly surprised that this ended up not being the case. Apparently he has decided to devolve into that predicted state. This film was not a bad idea and the acting was good, with what was provided, so that leaves us with the presentation being the problem. The focus of the film was very disjointed. The dialogue was vague and seemed to try too hard and coming up with the next big quotable. And the cinematography was, well, Fincher, if you're going to roll a film that is so colorless, just make it black and white. I'd love to see them remake this movie with some different direction. There was some real potential in it. Great film, deserved several Academy Award nominations. The script was tight, the theme fascinating, the acting incredible, especially Edward Norton, as one might expect, the direction inspired, and the cinematography stunning. It is one of the few films of the past 5 years that deserves to be seen multiple times. In fact, if you have seen it only once, you have missed something. I was seriously hoping the movie would receive Oscar nominations for Best Actor, Norton, Best Screenplay, Best Director, Best Cinematography, and Best Picture. So, how is it that the film received no nominations? Unfortunately, it had a mismatched ad campaign. The ads made it seem like the movie was about street boxing, instead of an intellectual and emotional ride through a man's psyche as he takes a strange path toward rebellion against consumer society. As a result, most who went to see it were disappointed, and those who would recognize its brilliance stayed far away from the movie theaters. This is one of the most underrated movies I know. I always love movies that keep you entertained and keep you guessing, and this movie scores a 10 in both. Those who enjoyed The Game, Memento, or The Matrix really should check it out. 22 years later and still hits me every single time. This has been, and will always be my ultimate absolute favorite movie. The mind-blowing, very unpredictable and relatable events is just so crazy. I've probably watched it 10 times in the past 10 years alone, and that's me being generous to my mind, hoping that somehow I'd forget some parts of the movie. I want to talk more details about the movie, but we all know rule number 1.